Aloha and welcome to Hawaii Sports Update. I'm your host PJ, and I am here with Star-Advertiser beat writer, Billy Hall. And before we get to him, we're going to do a weekly update for June 2nd, 2015. The NBA playoffs are taking a break from action as both teams are trying to heal up and get ready for the final countdown. The Golden State Warriors and the Cleveland Cavaliers face off on Thursday, June 4th, to settle the NBA championship. The Warriors dispatched the Houston Rockets in 5 games, while the Cleveland Cavaliers swept the Atlanta Hawks, as LeBron James averaged nearly a triple-double in the series. Both teams are banged up, with Klay Thompson taking a blow to the head late in Game 5 from Trevor Ariza and is questionable for Game 1. Of course, Kevin Love is still out for the Cavaliers, and Kyrie Irving is hampered by injuries, and his availability for Game 1 is also questionable. The cast of characters gets interesting as LeBron James has had to shoulder the load over the first 3 series for the Cavaliers. It's going to be interesting to see if he can do that against a team as deep as the Golden State Warriors. On the other hand, upstart Golden State haven't been in this position since 1975, and it's going to be interesting to see if experience is going to play a major role in this series. Of course, that experience being LeBron James playing in his 5th straight NBA Finals. Although LeBron James did not take home his 5th MVP, he feels like he's playing his best basketball of his life. On the other hand, many other experts are claiming that Stephen Curry is the best pure shooter in the history of the game. Regardless of what the 2 MVPs do, I believe this series is going to come down to the support cast. Andre Iguodala, Draymond Green, Harrison Barnes, and Andrew Bogut have all contributed mightily in the postseason, along with fellow Splash brother Klay Thompson. Meanwhile, J.R. Smith, Matthew Dellavedova, and Tristan Thompson have contributed heavily for the Cleveland Cavaliers and their success in the postseason as well. With all his success and 4 MVPs, LeBron James has not won a title during his tenure with the Cleveland Cavaliers, and it's going to be interesting to see just how hungry he is to pull this off and try to bring a championship back to his hometown and the people of Cleveland. Once again, this is PJ, and this is your weekly sports update for June 2nd, 2015. See you next week. Now, getting to the matter at hand, first let me introduce not only this guy, my friend. He is a beat writer. I've been hanging out at the baseball games with him for quite a few years now, and whenever you want knowledge about UH baseball, this is definitely the man to go to. My good friend Billy Hall, welcome to the Hawaii Sports Update, Billy.
How's it going, man? Thanks for having me. These are pretty sweet digs. Nice and comfortable in here.
Sachi and Zuri, they do the thing, you know. They're on top of it, that's for sure.
Yeah, nice.
So, let's break down this 2015 season. We'll get into Coach Trapp and a little bit later, but let's talk about some of the positive things. Of course, Tyler Brashear's the first team All Big West, the first UH player to accomplish that. And what does that accomplishment mean for the program? And and as far as recruiting or just anything, how important is that to get that first team Big West out of UH?
Well, I think it's just good for Tyler to kind of get rewarded for the season he had. A lot of times you see these junior college kids come in here, and it takes a little bit of an adjustment period getting used to Division I hitting, getting used to playing in front of these big crowds. And so, for him, he was the first newcomer to start opening night for UH, I believe, since 2001. I mean, they always had a returnee that was coming in and starting. So they basically saw him right away and said, hey, this guy's so good, we're going to throw him in opening night as a starter. And he delivered all year long. He had a great season. I mean, anytime you have an ERA under 2, you throw 100 innings in a Division I college baseball season, you're doing pretty well. And I'm really glad that he was well deserving of being first team All Big West. There were some really good pitchers in the league.
Absolutely.
You and I were there week after week seeing all these guys coming in, and we probably saw some guys who are going to be picked in the top 2-3 picks of the draft. Kid from Santa Barbara.
Eshelman and
Dylan Tate.
Dylan Tate, of course.
Exactly, and Eshelman just had a huge performance in the NCAA tournament last weekend.
Yes,
so
he did.
For Tyler Brashears in this conference, it's so just top heavy with pitching to be one of the 4 pitchers to get the first team all conference. That was really cool for him, and just really cool to see Hawaii kind of finally get someone on there after 3 years.
Absolutely. Now, do you think Tyler's going to be back next year? What's the word going around? I've heard anything from the 4th to the 20th. I don't believe so much of the latter. But what's your feeling about where Tyler Brashears is going to end up in early June?
Well, it's interesting. He's probably one of the toughest guys going into a draft to try to figure out that I've seen, because there's so many differing opinions on him. Some people are really high on him. There's a reason he's talked about as a potential top 5-round pick, but there's other people that say, his throwing motion kind of scares people. They think he's a guy that's prone to get injured. And I think that's one kind of big reason why it was huge for him to go out there and start every weekend and throw 100 innings in college to show that he could be durable. So, he's got a wide range of possibilities for him. Talking to him a little bit, I know that he's not just going to go sign for whatever. He's got a certain thing that he wants, and if he doesn't get it, he's open to coming back to Hawaii next year. He's actually going to be in Hawaii. He's planning on going to summer school unless something happens. So he'll actually be in Hawaii for the draft. So that's a sign that he's serious about maybe coming back. So it'll be real interesting to see. They're going to need him. I mean, they've got 3 pitchers in this draft that could all sign. They could all come back. And if you can bring back a guy that had a year like he did this year, imagine how good he'd be next year. So he's definitely going to be one of a lot of guys to watch in this draft that's next week.
Yeah, absolutely. And from a selfish point of view, I hope he comes back.
It'd be fun to watch him again. He was every weekend he threw this year. He was fun to watch.
Absolutely. Now let's move down to Quentin Torres-Costa. He started out as a starter, and had some trouble, in the starting role, and then just came down towards the last third of the season, especially in conference, and just was locked down. I mean, we know about his pedigree. We knew him out of high school, that he's a Hilo boy. What do you think his role is going to be? Do you think they might try to put him back on the bump next year, or are they think they're going to try to keep him in the pen, or is he going to be gone also?
I mean, it could be any of all 3. I think, like you said, he started as a starter this year. I think he made 3 starts, and he had a good first week, and after that first week, he really struggled the next couple of weeks. And so they took him out of the rotation, they turned him into their closer, and for the last, 8-9 weeks of the season, he was unhittable. I mean, he didn't give up an earned run in the Big West. He was second team all Big West, which, if you ask me, that was kind of a bit of a snub. He was so good. But in terms of him, if he comes back next year, unless they really need a starter and they're really void of starting pitching, it's hard to take him out of that role, because once they put him back there, those last 2 months of the season, they were basically playing a 7-inning game.
Right.
If they were ahead after 7 innings, it was over, because they brought him in and he got the job done. And having a weapon like that to shorten the game was huge for them. So, like I said, unless they really needed a starting pitcher, I'd imagine he'd have that same role next year. But again, it's going to be interesting. He's a guy that's got some scouts that really like him. His stuff was really good by the end of the year. He's kind of only a 2-pitch guy. That's kind of mostly what we saw when he dominated, but he was really good with those 2 pitches.
Right.
And so I don't know how that translates toward the pros, and if someone's going to draft a guy that's maybe just in there to get lefties out or something like that. So, again, hard to tell with him, but I think if there's a good chance he comes back, he's a redshirt sophomore, so he actually has 2 more years of eligibility.
Right.
So I don't see any scenario where having 1 more year coming back, playing college, and improving your stock wouldn't help him. So.
Right, and being a lefty doesn't hurt.
No.
Now, moving forward to Jacob Sheldon-Collins, another guy, this is just my point of view. He started off a little bit slow, but, this guy hit over 300 in the Big West, and when him and Saul Wilson actually started to heat up towards the end of the season, they started producing a little bit more runs. What's your take on Jacob Sheldon-Collins?
He had a great year. He was one of the guys that really stepped up and really, it's funny, he came in for his defense and he really struggled that first night against Oregon. I think he made 2 errors and everything kind of got to him a little bit, and I think people were like, oh no, what's going on? We'd heard such good things. But from then on, he was great defensively, and the big surprise was his bat. He ended up leading the team in average. He hit close to 300, I think 295, right around there.
Right.
Just a real solid college baseball player. Great junior year. Towards the end of the season, the bottom of the lineup was actually producing a bit of runs for them, and a lot of it was what he was doing out of the 9 spot. So he'll be back next year. He'll be one of those kind of stalwart guys you can lean on at the shortstop position, which is obviously one of the most important positions on the field. So they got to feel real good about that spot coming back next season.
Absolutely. And what about Alex Solson, also Big West honorable mention, along with Jacob Sheldon-Collins? you know, what did Solison bring to the plate and to the table this year for the Bows?
We brought some offense, which is what they desperately need.
A little bit of pop.
A little bit of pop.
Right.
You know, he still, you know, he had some gap power. But he also really excelled. You know, he played third base for, I think, half the season, and he kind of struggled a little bit. And you really kind of saw when they took him away from third base and said, hey, we only want you to hit. Be our designated hitter. Only focus on hitting those 4 or 5 at-bats a game and go out there and do that. And he hit a lot better in those situations. I think he was close to a 300 hitter as a designated hitter. So, yeah, coming back, he's a guy where, you know, they still kind of have some questions at third base, and he could go out there and play, you know, an okay third base defensively. But I think for them, you know, needing the offense that they need, that he's kind of going to be the prototypical designated hitter moving forward for next season. So, you know, he's another guy coming back where you talk about trying to produce some more runs and get some more runs that he'll really be counted on next season.
Absolutely. Now, what about Andrew Jones, the lefty?
Yeah.
Honorable mention also.
Yeah, no, he was kind of one of my favorite guys coming in because I talked to him the first time. You know, kid from Australia. You gotta love that accent. He's a real kind of a fun-loving guy, and so he came out his first year, and I remember he came in. It was the last game of the Oregon series, the first series of the season, and he came in out of the bullpen. He just started mowing guys down. I think he struck out 4 of the 7 guys he faced. I don't think they hit a ball out of the infield. And then at the 8th, batter came up, and he kind of had to come out with an injury, and it turned out he needed Tommy John, and we kind of lost him.
Wow.
Yeah, we lost him for 2 years. And so it was tough having him out there. He tried to come back last year. He still kind of wasn't 100%. And even at the beginning of this year, really kind of struggled with his command, struggled to find the strike zone, and, you know, kind of had to work on some things, had to, you know, kind of trust the pitches the coaching staff was calling, trust his fastball a little bit more. And then he came on in the Big West, and really, the part of the season where Hawaii really did its best, it was they got good starting pitching from their 3 guys. And it was him and Quentin Torres-Costa. And those were really the only 5 guys they used in I think, about 5-6 games in a row, and that's all they needed. And so he really provided that bridge from the starters to Quentin and did a really good job. So, yeah, he got some honorable mention credit as well, which I think was definitely deserved.
Okay, now moving forward, all these guys have the possibility of coming back, except for Jones, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so, you know, with that, you know, with that foundation, so to speak, and a couple of the new guys, you know, who we'll get to later, you know, what do you think it's going to take to get Hawaii competing, you know, within the top 3, you know, again, consistently? You know, I mean, are they just a couple power hitters away? I mean, their pitching is solid. I mean, in your eyes, what is it?
I think there's no question offensively they've got to find a way to get better. It's a team that, looking at the numbers, the last 4 years now, they've finished outside the top, I think, 245 teams in Division I in batting average. I mean, they've just struggled to kind of put guys on base and struggled to score runs. And we saw, you know, for instance, towards the end of the year, they went on that run where they went on the road and they won 6 games in a row. They beat Long Beach State 3 games, which is by far the most impressive weekend of the season. Long Beach State was a team that was thinking NCAA tournament. They were right there above 500, right there at 500 in conference, and they probably thought, hey, if we get 3 home wins against Hawaii, we're going to be right there. Turns out 3 losses in Hawaii later, they're out of it. You know, Hawaii played a great series, and part of that series was they hit the ball really well. And so many times this year we talked after games about, you know, they lost by 1 or 2 runs, and it was 1 error here or 1 bad pitch here, and that really was the difference. Well, when you score 6, 7 runs instead of 2 or 3 runs, you can make those mistakes, and you're all right because, you know, you've got the run support behind it. And so they've spent so much time trying to focus on playing the perfect game to try to beat these teams by 1 run, where if you can just score a few more runs, you don't have to play that perfect game. You know, you can make a couple of mistakes, and it's okay because your offense will carry you. And I think if they can get to the point of scoring a couple more runs a game, I think this program, I think they'll be able to improve significantly.
Absolutely. There you heard it, straight from Billy Hall, beat writer from the Star-Advertiser. If you want to tweet in live on the show and ask Billy or myself a question, just tweet at ThinkTech HI, and we will take your questions. We're going to go on a commercial break right now, and when we come back, we'll be talking some more UH baseball with Billy Hall.
This is Alice Lee Hagan, host of ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. My show here at ThinkTech Hawaii is every Thursday from 3 to 4 in the afternoon. I bring in interesting guests from Hawaii, the mainland, and hopefully international guests in the future. Do join us on Thursday from 3 to 4 p.m. ThinkTech Hawaii Business Education Spotlight. Aloha.
Hi, aloha. My name is Chris Leatham, and I host a show called The Economy and You. The show plays every Wednesday at noon, and on my show, I bring on guests who are interested or working in the technology space. And so I'd like you to come and watch the show and learn with me about all the sort of exciting things that we're doing in Hawaii to build and grow our economy ecosystem. So I'd like to say aloha, and I look forward to seeing you on the show. Thank you.
Aloha and welcome back to Hawaii Sports Update. I'm your host PJ, and we're chilling right here, ThinkTech Studios with Star Advertiser beat writer. I don't know why I keep
Tongue twister,
yeah,
right there.
that's a tongue twister. Star Advertiser beat writer, Mr. Billy Hall. And Billy, before I went to the commercial, we were talking about the Big West picks. Of course, Tyler Bashir's the first team, Quentin Torres-Costa the second team, and then the other three honorable mention. Do you know who some of the recruits are, what their reputation is, what positions they're going to fill, and what kind of promise, or recruiting is coming here next year?
Yeah, they signed, they signed a pretty good class in the fall. A lot of high school kids, a lot of kids from Hawaii. They also kind of mix in a couple of recent signees from the mainland, but they definitely have a couple of middle infielders coming in. A couple of infielders I think are going to be able to shore up some key spots. Steven Ventimiglia has been their starting second baseman for basically the majority of 4 years.
Right.
And so second base is a spot where I know they got a couple guys coming in. They're going to be able to probably take over that area. Third base is another spot. They got a kid from Arizona who had a really good year. Really impressive with his power numbers. And I think he had 10 homers, about 10 doubles, 8 or 9 triples.
Wow.
So a guy that could spray the ball around the ballpark a little bit that I think is a potential third baseman for them. So yeah, they got some good offense coming in. They signed a really good core of local kids. They got 5 of them. We'll see how many end up making it here. I think, there's Ian Kahaloa from Campbell, I think is probably gone for the most part. I mean, there's a chance he could come, but I doubt it.
What about Rios?
Yeah, Rios is another one where I just saw a list that they're saying that he's a potential, top 10 draft pick with Hawaii ties that could maybe go. But he was really good. I saw him play about 4 times this year. I love the kid's attitude, just hard-nosed, doesn't take anything from anybody. Loved his attitude, great defensively. He had some great defensive catching skills, really quick to second base. Saw him make some snap throws behind guys at first base to get guys out.
Okay.
And then he hit about 3 home runs, I believe, in the ILH, so maybe a little bit of pop. I think as bad as something that would probably be the last thing to come around, but he's an interesting kid. There's a kid out of Yolani, Pikai Winchester, hit about 500. He made first team All-State, and the Star Advertiser just released their All-State teams on Sunday. Rios was on there, Pikai was on there. Kid from the Big Island, Kobe Candaroma.
Right, that's what I was going to get to next.
Yeah, he's a kid that he could be, if he comes to school, there's a chance he could get drafted too. There was a Hilo kid last year they signed that ended up signing. Those scouts got their eyes out there on the Big Island ever since Colton got drafted, and Colton's doing what he's doing. So
Absolutely.
yeah, but Kobe's a guy that I think could come in and maybe be that a starter in the outfield right away. They have K.O. Aliviato.
Yeah, Aliviato's gone.
Yeah.
Okay, now, in your eyes, Chase Koau has done a formidable job behind the plate. If Rio signs, is that going to be like a...
Well, it'll be interesting because they got another kid from California, I believe his name's Tyler Murray, who's a catcher. So they actually could potentially have 3 catchers, and you can never have too many catchers in baseball, right? I mean, this is a team that for about 4 or 5 years really struggled to have one really good catcher.
Right.
But but I feel for Chase because he had he was one of my favorite guys this year.
Yeah.
He had a great year. He was real good defensively. He threw some guys out. He struggled a little bit towards the end of the year, but they had to use him every day because he was all they had.
Yeah.
But I thought he had a really good freshman year, and he's going to be, no one's just going to come in and take his spot. He was too good for that. So they're going to have some options. If one of those guys can hit, there's a DH spot, you could rotate guys. So they'll have some options, but you can never have too many catchers.
Right. Well, most of the time, if it's a catcher, if you have 3 catchers, you usually will put one at first base, but Eric Ramirez is there.
Yeah.
So, okay, of all the years that you've followed the UH and the baseball team and Coach Trapp and everything, can you explain to the people who really don't know about the recruiting process, what recruiting hurdles do you feel that have to be jumped just because we're in Hawaii?
Oh, there's lots. I mean, Well, first thing, just baseball in general. I think it's probably the toughest sport because you're dealing with a situation where you can't just go out there and try to recruit the best guys. You recruit the best guys, they're going to sign and get drafted.
Right.
And so you're in a position now where, okay, the draft is in June. And so I've got these guys that I've signed to say be on my team in 2016. Well, the 2015 draft is in June. And then you have until the middle of July whether to decide, am I going to sign with my teams or am I going to go to school?
Absolutely.
Well, a lot of these kids wait until the last minute to sign, and all of a sudden you're a college baseball coach, and you might get 2 or 3 people call and say, hey, we're going to sign. And now all of a sudden it's the middle of July, school's starting in a month, and you're like, I've lost 2 or 3 recruits. Now I've got, scholarships to go spend, but, all these kids have signed already,
Yeah.
So you have to really be able to, have your class and have backup plans. You got to have all these backup plans, all these what-if scenarios. Are they
Absolutely.
going to go? Are they going to stay? And it's just not with your recruits. It's also the kids on your team. You might have, for instance, the UH baseball team this year, they got 3 pitchers that are juniors, or 1 sophomore, 2 juniors, that they could stay. And if they do, great, you're going to have all these guys back. Well, if you
Right.
go, now all of a sudden you've got all these positions
Yeah.
open, you've got all these scholarships to hand out, and you've got basically 2 months before school starts.
Absolutely.
So it's not easy at all. It's tough.
Yeah, and I know, and Coach Trapp does a great job. If he has people that are going into the draft almost every year, then he's doing something right. Because he's out there picking the right people. But let me tell you a little inside story about the late July thing. That's only for the high round guys, okay? Because what happens is the high round guys, they hold out for the money a little bit, and then they're going to get ready to go to instructional league anyway in Arizona, because after you finish your college season, then you have the short season, which is the 70-game rookie season.
Yeah.
And so, that's just the inside thing. But like mainly the top guys are the ones who hold out till like July. Everyone else, that they're ready to gung ho, man. They just ready to get playing. But it is a disadvantage to the college coaches, because how long it takes for them to make up their mind.
Yeah. Well, right, and even, I can point to a kid, I think it was 2 or 3 years ago, they had a JC pitcher that they thought was coming in, decided at the last minute. He used UH to try to get a better deal, and then he decided to go back to JC. So you also have that kind of thing. They had a high school guy committed about, I want to say 3 years ago, that got drafted in the middle rounds, and they felt pretty good about him coming back. And then right before the deadline, I think he was in the early 20th round pick.
Out of high school?
Out of high school.
Wow.
And then right before the deadline, a bunch of money from that organization opened up because one of their top guys didn't sign for whatever reason, and they decided to throw a bunch of money at him. And
Right.
so it really does. I mean, there are guys that you wouldn't think that come mid-July, all of a sudden they get an opportunity and they take it. So
Yeah.
it's not easy. And that's just the one part of it. I mean, there's also getting kids qualified and all that kind of stuff.
Oh,
I don't know
yeah.
if you want to get into. So it's a full-time job. It's tough. It's not easy by any means.
Absolutely. And for people who don't know about baseball, when you come in as a freshman, you can go to junior college and you can get drafted after your freshman or sophomore year. But if you commit to a university, you have to at least be a junior or wait till you're 20 years old before you can enter the draft. A lot of people don't know that. So when you get good freshman commits, like when Colton Wong was a freshman and Eric Ramirez now, those guys are really jewels. I mean, those are hard people to get. And I think Coach Trapp has been doing a good job getting players. It's just he gets so many taken away, and it's a tough gig, man.
Yeah, and especially kids that just need the money. I mean, it's easy to go out there and say, hey, look at Colton. He turned down, I think it was $80,000 or something out of high school and got a signing bonus 3 years later, over $1 million.
Right.
So you can always look at that, but at the same time, you never know with kids, their family situations and all that. They get a little bit of money, they might need it really, a lot. So, yeah, it's tough.
Absolutely. When I played baseball, I got drafted in the 2nd round, and I still went on my trips just because. I knew I was going to sign, but if you have a scholarship, like I had a full ride to UC Santa Barbara, and through some personal issues with my family that was going on, of course I knew I was going to sign, but that was used as a bargaining tool,
Exactly.
Because when they first called me up, they offered something that wasn't feasible, and then I just told them, well, I'm going to go to school. And 20 minutes later, they called me back. you know, and that's the business part that a lot of people don't like to talk about. And, you know, it's you know, that they're going to have a lot to look forward to once they sign. It's just a whole nother ball game once they get in the minor leagues. And, you know, it's
yeah, well, and that's the tough part too, because you're a coach and, you know, you mean well. You're not trying to screw over any of your coaches, but at the same time, you're trying to do what's best for you. You know, you're trying to get paid. You're trying to make some money. And so,
absolutely.
you know, a lot of times I hear, well, why didn't these coaches know this kid was going to sign, or why did he know he was going to do this? Well, part of it is you're going to tell a coach, yeah, you know, I really want to go there because you want to, you know, try to say, hey, I really want to go to school to try to get a better offer.
Right.
And so coaches sometimes look at that, and at the end they're like, oh, I got played, and they get really upset. But you know, that's the reality. You're doing what's best for you. You know, it's not something, you're not doing anything nefarious or anything. You're just kind of doing what you need to do. And so, you know, that all plays a part in it. It's a really, really tricky business.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah.
There you have it. We're going to go on a commercial break on Hawaii Sports Update. We are here live with Star-Advertiser beat writer Billy Hall.
Yeah.
We'll see you on the other side of the commercial on Hawaii.
Aloha, my name is Miley Scarpino, and I'm the host of the Empower Hour. If you're interested in health, nutrition, fitness, here on the island of Oahu, want to learn more about places to train at or different trainers available, then watch my show on Fridays at 3. We have a great time, and I hope that you'll come join us. Much aloha. Now go get swole.
Aloha, I'm Hunter Hevlin, host of Sustainable Hawaii here at ThinkTech Hawaii. You can tune in every week on Thursday at 2 p.m. to see interviews with sustainability professionals from around the state and even further abroad, learning about activities with water management, food security, waste management, and a whole host of other fascinating opportunities to get engaged with making a greener island. So if you're interested in making the transition from consuming individuals to communities of producers, check us out every Thursday.
Aloha, my name is Josh Green. I'm a senator from the Big Island. I work in the ER there. But on Tuesday afternoons, I get to come and spend 45 minutes to an hour with Jay Fidel and the ThinkTech staff. They're terrific professionals. They help us to bring some of the leading cutting-edge topics here across our state to you. So you can join us at our show on healthcare in Hawaii to talk with leaders from across all the spectrum of health in our state, or you can join us for any other show where we talk about economic development or tourism or some really eclectic programs too. So really, we'd love to see you here on our show. Thanks for joining us and thanks for supporting us.
Welcome back to Hawaii Sports Update. If you just joined us, you can tweet us here live in the studio at ThinkTechHI. I'm here with Star-Advertiser beat writer Billy Hall. Tweet him up, man. Test his knowledge. He has plenty. And we're sitting here talking UH baseball and recapping the season for 2005. You know, they ended up 21-32 overall, 12-12 in conference. You know, I think this season was more like, I would just call this season the streak season. You know, they dropped 3 in a row 3 times. They won 3 in a row 3 times, and then they went 1-2 and 2-1, and that's how they ended up at 12-12, right?
Yeah, it was an interesting year. I think, you know, they started off, they struggled really to start the season, and so they lost some games they shouldn't have lost, and their record kind of got down. And playing in the Big West, you weren't really going to be able to overcome that because you're not going to go rip through the Big West and make things happen. So,
absolutely.
You know, they bounced back, and they really played pretty well for the most part at least during the Big West season, a couple games leading up to it. And so it's one of those things where, well, what do you look at? Do you look at the fact that they had a 6-game improvement in the Big West, and they finished 12-12, which in this league, you know, you finish 500 in the Big West, to me, that's a good job because it's a tough league.
It's respectable.
Exactly. It's
to say the least.
Yeah.
It's a little bit more than respectable, but it's at least respectable.
Yeah, exactly. Or do you focus on the fact that, you know, it was the 3rd straight 30-loss season? That's never happened at UH. You know, they really struggled non-conference. They really lost some games that they shouldn't have. And so do you focus on that more than, say, what you do in the Big West? So it was kind of a tale of 2 seasons. And then the disappointing thing for me was they didn't finish well. The last 2 weeks, you know, they came off that really good 6-game winning streak on the road. They got to 12-9 in conference, and so one win against Fullerton, I thought you'd have a winning record, and that'd be something really good. And They got shut down the first night by Eshelman, who we talked about, who's probably going
Right.
to be a first-round pick. But then kind of after that, they didn't really play very well the next couple of games. And then they really, it was kind of a tough situation. They have a bye week the last week of the season, and so they had to go on the road and play 3 kind of meaningless games in Arizona.
Right.
And they didn't play particularly well. Tyler had a good game pitching. The middle game of that against Arizona was really good, but they didn't play particularly well in a couple of the other games, and so it didn't quite end the way they wanted to. But they definitely still got some work to do, no doubt. I mean, there's a couple of key years. I think next year is a really key year for this program. Where they go, a lot of it's going to depend on the draft, getting these guys in the school. But I think 2016 is really going to be kind of a year where a lot could change after that, depending upon how they do.
Okay, let's move in this direction. Now that UH is in the Big West, we know that's a step up from what the WAC was. I mean, not really at the top with the Fresno States, but just as a whole, and so when you're speaking of the bad losses, I know you're talking about Hofstra, right?
A couple of Hofstra games.
Right, and then
a couple New Mexico State
Oklahoma,
games.
New Mexico State, right. But does that just come down to what we explained earlier? We talked about earlier. Is it just a key hit here or there, or so they just lost so many close games by 1 or 2 runs. It was just amazing.
Yeah, I think it was a combination of 2 things. One, it was an offense that I think I wrote at the end of the year, at 22 of the 53 games they played this year, they scored 2 runs or less.
Yeah.
If you score 2 runs in a game, it's going to be really hard to win. And so I think it was a combination of 2 things. One, offensively they just didn't score enough, and then 2, Quentin did such a great job as a closer, but they really didn't get him in that role until they had 2 leads at Cal Poly that they lost. I think they were up 5-0 in the 5th or 6th inning, lost the game.
And they ended up getting swept by them too,
yeah,
right?
And I think they had a 2-run lead in the 7th inning the next game and lost that. And it wasn't until after that series that they put Quentin back there. So you imagine if Quentin had been back there from day one, a lot of those games where they lost late, they probably end up winning. So
absolutely.
Yeah, just a couple of things there, and I think it would have been a lot closer to 500, maybe even over 500.
Yeah, they had a 245 batting average as a team. 421 hits, and only 83 of them were extra base hits.
Yeah.
I just think if they can find some guys who could hit the ball alley to alley and sort of protect Ramirez, that could be anywhere from 5 to 8 games. Baseball is a game of inches, and it comes down to certain situations that you have to execute in and stuff like that. But they played tough. They played tough all year long, though.
Yeah, and you're right about the offensive thing where you're not going to crush a whole bunch of balls out of Les Murakami, but you can hit gap to gap. You can hit doubles, and so I think they need to kind of improve in that area. Get those hits where you're not just trying to single 3 times in an inning to score a run.
Right.
Get a walk, get a single, and then drive into it with an extra base hit.
I want to see somebody score from first base. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
With a gapper.
Yeah.
Now, so speaking of schedule, Coach Trapp has always, scheduled tough. He's trying to scale it down a little bit. I don't know what next year's schedule is going to look like, but is that a positive? Is that a negative, or does it work sort of both ways? Especially now that he's in the Big West, which is a very tough conference.
Yeah, I think a lot of it too depends on where you're kind of at as a team. I think if you have, say, his team in 2009, 2010, you can play these big schedules.
Right.
Experienced teams with a lot of pitching depth. You can play those kind of schedules, but especially for kind of where they're at right now, they've had some pretty tough schedules that's really kind of grinded them down by the time they got to the start of conference play. And then you get to conference and you're facing Irvine, you're facing Fullerton, you're facing Cal Poly, you're facing UC Santa Barbara. It's tough. And so I know
Long Beach State,
there you go, there's another one. So I know next year it's going to change a little bit. It's going to be the first time in, I think, 5 or 6 years that they don't open with Oregon. They're going to bring in New Mexico instead of Oregon.
Okay.
They're going to play at San Francisco. And then they got some, I think West Virginia's coming in next year.
Okay.
Michigan's coming in next year, who made the tournament this year. They won the Big Ten tournament. So, they're still going to have some quality teams. I don't think it's going to be quite as strenuous as what you've seen. Still some, interesting programs. I think it'll be cool to see Michigan come in here
Yeah,
and play. I'm looking forward to
absolutely.
that.
Absolutely.
But no, I think there's definitely they're opening up a little bit to try to, have a little bit more success, gain a little bit more confidence. So
Right.
you're a confident bunch going into Big West.
Right.
See what that does.
And I think that's important, especially like you say, with a team that's not so seasoned, to build that confidence and to, see what it's like to close a game down and win and, go on a little streak and try to, build confidence in the team. So, hopefully next year, we can get some sweeps from the people we need to sweep, and play tough against the people we need to play tough. The Houston Classic, Baylor, Nebraska, and Houston. I mean, that's a tough road trip, but they got to play in Minute Maid Park, so
Yeah. And those were all games that they had a chance to win.
Absolutely.
They played pretty well. I mean, that was at the time where the bullpen kind of was out of whack still, and they still were trying to figure things out. But they had a chance to win those games.
Yeah.
And you can say that about a lot of weekends this year. They had a lot of chances to win a lot of good games, and couldn't get it done sometimes, did some other times, and so. I think it'll be interesting because we could be looking at a team next year where you got Tyler Bashirs and L.J. Brewster and Quentin closing and a really experienced team, or we could be looking at a team with no starting experience from this year. So these next 2 months are going to be really interesting.
Okay, Billy, attendance is up. We are one of the top draws on the West Coast. That's a positive. Hawaii has always supported its baseball team. We know that ever since way back in the days. But of all your years of covering the Rainbows, I want your top 5 list.
My top 5 list.
Yeah,
just players.
It doesn't have to be.
Wow,
It doesn't have to be talent. No, I'm gonna let everybody know. It doesn't have to be talent-wise. Just who's your favorite players? Just who do you like to see go out on that field and compete?
Oh wow, interesting. Well, I mean,
they don't even have to be all-stars.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean, you got to start with Colton.
Of course.
Obviously, you got to start with him.
Okay.
One, for how good he is, but 2, his attitude
and his work ethic.
His work ethic, exactly, his leadership and the way they kind of bought in and followed him. I mean, that was a team that, when they went to a regional, they made it to a regional final against Arizona State, and they were on the cusp of they were the 5th seed going into the tournament, and it looked like the season was going to be over, and he hit 2 home runs in a game to win a tournament game, and then from there they just all caught fire. But no, Colton's obviously on that list. A guy that just graduated, Kaeo Liviato.
Okay. Yeah.
Real nice kid.
He's one of my favorites too.
Up until his last week, I could never get a good quote out of him. He's so businesslike. Just so straight. Hey, we got to play well. Do this, do that.
Yeah.
But a great kid. Worked really hard. It's going to be sad not seeing him around next year. But I'd have to put him in that list.
Absolutely.
Who else, boy? Some catchers. Landon Hernandez was fun when I first started out.
Man, we got the same taste, man.
Yeah.
The 3 guys you named are on my list also.
Really?
So, yeah. So I want to know who the other 2 are too, because I love Landon Hernandez.
Yeah.
He was, he to me was what my junior college catcher was. That guy he was a captain on the field. He was aloof of all situations, and that's what you need behind the plate, man. You need another coach basically behind the plate, and that's what he provided. And that's why he's going to be a good coach too.
Yeah, and he's going to be good. He was a straight up honest guy. Sometimes you always need those guys who goes kind of figure out what's really going on in certain areas, and he had no problems telling you how things were going. So he was a lot of fun.
Okay, you got 2 more.
Was that 3?
Yeah.
Well, I always enjoyed Matt Sisto.
Yeah.
He was here for 4 years. He was by the end of the time. He was fun to talk to.
Okay.
He had a real good career for himself. He, didn't show that if you don't walk a lot of guys, you can go out there and be really good. So he was always fun. Number 5, and I got to think about this. Greg Garcia.
Okay.
He was in AAA. He was good.
Yeah.
And he was another. He's a coach's son.
Oh,
The guys that'll really talk to you,
Man, Greg Garcia was a heck of a player, man.
Oh, yeah.
Heck of a player.
Yeah, he was.
With him and Colton, man, I think that's the best up the middle we had. And who was in Breland? No, was Breland?
Breland was in
center field, right?
Yeah, he was. Yeah, 2010, yeah. And I knew they were good, but I didn't realize you'd have a major league second baseman and a guy in Greg Garcia who's right on the cusp, man. He's AAA and he's hitting the ball well. And if St. Louis wasn't so loaded in the middle infield, he might be in the pros already.
And the bad thing about it is he's so good that they won't trade him.
Yeah.
You know, there was this guy who coached me in the minor leagues. His name was Juan Lopez. And you know how come you never heard of him? Because he was the backup shortstop for the Milwaukee Brewers for 13 seasons, and they never traded him and never released him.
Wow.
He was that good, but Robin Yount never got hurt.
Yeah.
And it was unbelievable.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's
this guy,
a tough spot.
yeah, this guy ended up being one of my coaches.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and it's just amazing how that happens. Mine is, of course, Colton Wong,
Yeah.
Landon Hernandez. Okay, but I also like Linsky.
Oh, he was, yeah.
I like Lenny Linsky.
One of the best interviews, no doubt about it, you know. I mean, that guy was wild. He was wild both as the interview and he was wild on the mound sometimes, but he was effectively wild. He was good, man. He was, he would come out to the Lady Gaga, would be his closer music.
Yeah,
I believe.
yeah,
And so
yeah.
he'd come out, opposing teams would be getting ready to face the UH's closer and Lady Gaga's playing. They're probably thinking, what? And he'd come out and his first ball would hit the backstop or something like that. Or
that's his
he'd bounce it about
personality.
20 feet in front of the plate, but yeah, he was great, man.
We had our own little version of the wild thing there.
Yeah,
Huh?
we did. No, he was great though. I hope he, you know, he's gone through some stuff. He hasn't been healthy, which
Oh,
has been
okay.
kind of unfortunate.
Well,
But
yeah, I'm sorry to hear about that.
still hoping he gets a shot.
Okay, well, I want to ask you really quick. I mean, don't you think the Big West should have a tournament?
Yeah, it'd be nice, but I know that there's. I mean, you see it every year. There's teams that are going to make a tournament, but then they don't make the tournament because they don't win their conference tournament and someone else goes. And I know
Right.
the Fullertons of the world don't want that. And Fullerton
Right.
seems to be the one that kind of controls things. But
Oh.
it would have been nice to have a tournament. It would have been nice this year to have a tournament.
It would have been interesting,
Yeah,
yeah,
you know,
especially
UH
how good we were playing towards the end.
Yeah, UH could have gone out there with Tyler and LJ the first two nights with Andrew and Q.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
could have beaten anyone
And
to
they
start
could
off.
compete with probably anybody in the nation. They can compete with those four guys.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
Definitely. I don't know if it's going to happen though. I wouldn't hold our breath. It sounds like they're pretty. Them in the Pac-12 don't do the tournaments. It sounds like that's going to be how it is for a while.
Well, you know, and it's California, and they feel like, you know, that they play enough games because they have the weather, and then the East Coast teams have to have the tournament because they couldn't play the early games or whatever. But all right, enough about baseball, man. Who's going to win the NBA Finals?
Oh man!
Before we wrap
Gotta
up
go with
here,
the
we got a
Warriors.
couple minutes.
Gotta go with Golden State, the West. I mean, LeBron is LeBron. He's great, but Kyrie's hurt. Kevin Love's out. You got to be on full. You got to have everyone healthy to beat Golden State. And I know everyone's saying, "Oh man, look, they swept the Hawks." But I mean, did you see the Hawks team? I mean,
Yeah.
some of those names I barely even knew.
Well, you know, this is the thing. You know, LeBron, you know, you can't equalize him. You know, just let him be LeBron. You know, if you shut down everybody else, you know, LeBron can score 60 points and he still lose.
Yeah.
You know, but when you have Dellavedova and Tristan Thompson and J.R. Smith looking like all-stars, then that's a whole other story.
I think J.R. Smith is the guy you got to stop. Don't give him open looks. Don't let him get hot. I think he's the guy. If he gets hot, he can shoot you right in the game. So if I'm Golden State, LeBron's LeBron. He's going to get his. I'm trying to shut down those shooters. I'm trying to shut down J.R. Smith first.
All right. Do you think LeBron would give him the opportunity to let them shoot him out of the game?
Probably. I mean,
Because he's a streak shooter. I mean, don't get me wrong. He can nail 8 or 9 or, you know, 7 in a row. But when he's off too.
that's true.
You know.
But he's going to need somebody. I mean,
Yeah.
he can't do this himself.
Oh, of course,
He's
of course.
going to need someone.
You know, the thing, of course, when I was talking to my sidekick Justin too, LeBron's going to have to play defense this series.
Yeah.
You know, against somebody who can score. He really hasn't had to do that in the other series, and all that's going to do is just add to the toll. And if he accomplishes all of this and wins, then what are you going to say?
Can't say anything. You can't say anything.
Yeah.
And for someone like me that, you know, the way he left Cleveland, his hometown, that rubbed me the wrong way. And just seeing him go back to it, like, you know, they're burning his jersey and, you know, he's leaving them on national television. And 4 years later, he's, I'm coming home. I've never really liked it, so I'm not the hugest fan. But, you know, you mentioned him trying to guard anyone. Do you put him on Steph Curry? Do you try to shut down Steph Curry with him? Or I kind of think maybe you put him on Clay, because I think if you stop, Steph's going to get his. It's kind of like we're talking about J.R. Smith. If you stop Clay and stop that number 2 guy, you might have a better chance. But I don't know what they're going to do. He's going to end up probably guarding a lot of guys.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. But there you have it. Billy Hall, beat writer for the Star-Advertiser.
Right on,
Thank
man.
you, my man,
Thanks
for
for having
showing
me
up.
on.
I appreciate
Yeah.
you always.